welcome back to Biblical Conversations with Korey. Today we're going to answer the next question from you guys that was asked by you, and that is, what does a godly relationship look like? Now, I know this is probably one that everybody's wondering, and everybody is really dialed into this one most likely. I want to make sure that we understand each other correctly, that I will not be giving you advice on how to find somebody, or, here are the pickup lines to use, or how do I get somebody to like me. That's not what this video is about, okay? You're kind of on your own on that one, but as always, we want to look at what the Bible says about godly relationships, and I guess this one's probably more suitable for people that are already dating, or maybe if you're about to date or something like that. But I guess what we're going to cover is, what makes a relationship godly? How do I have a godly relationship? What are some things I need to steer clear of? What are some things maybe I need to engage in? So we're going to look at that from a biblical perspective today. Now, I do have to say, this one's going to be a little trickier. I think we've had a question similar to this before that has this in it, but the thing we run into with this question is there's not a lot that the Bible gives on dating. There's not a lot it talks about with that. It talks a lot about marriage, talks a lot about purity and things like that. But as far as just dating and kind of before marriage and things like that, there's not a lot there. And so what we can look at, though, we're going to look at a verse here in a second, but what we can look at is how to be a godly person, how to live in a godly manner, the things you say, the ways you talk, the way you walk, how you think, how you view the world, how you view relationships. All these things, we can kind of look at that, and we can kind of build from there, and we can kind of try to help you be a godly person and how to view these things, and prepare yourself for a relationship, or if you're already in one, maybe make some adjustments, maybe make some changes, maybe think of some things, maybe have some conversations with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever it may take. But there is a verse that a lot of people use for relationships. And the one that a lot of people use in this regard for relationships and marriage and that type of thing, mainly relationships, because as I said, there's a good bit on marriage already. But that is 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14. So let's look at what Paul has to say here. 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14 says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness?" Okay, so Paul says not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. What does that mean? Well, so a yoke is a thing, if you can look this up if you're not sure, a yoke is a thing used for oxen. I don't know. But back in those days especially, they would have a yoke. It's a big wooden thing, and it would go, you'd put two ox side by side. I think it's just two, and maybe there was more than two, but it was two. Specifically two. I'm really on top of it today, as you can tell. But you'd put this wooden thing around their neck, and what it would do is it would, if one of them, it would help them walk together, but if one of them tried to go the other direction, like let's say one of them tried to go left, one of them tried to go right, they'd pull each other, right? Like they would, it wouldn't work. And Paul is saying, he's talking to the church here. If you keep reading, he's talking about the temple of God and, not letting things defile you and those types of things. You've probably read that verse before. But he says to not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Now, why not? What's wrong with that? Well, Paul, it sounds like, believes that is going to hurt you rather than help you. Now, does this mean that we can never be around unbelievers? No, absolutely not, of course. Like we have to be around unbelievers. We have to be around lost people. We have to go to school with lost people. We have to work with lost people. We may have lost people in our families. We have to be around them. That's all right. Like that's not possible. But what he's saying is, hey, don't be in fellowship with them, as in, okay, again, I'm not saying you can't have lost friends. Matter of fact, it's kind of good if you have lost friends because hopefully you're trying to bring them to Christ. But what he's saying is that it's not good to be unequally yoked, as in you're allowing them to change who you are, these people, and a lot of times this is used for in kind of business. A lot of people like to use this verse because, sometimes business deals, especially from a lost person, can get a little sketchy, and you got to kind of cut some corners or maybe cheat or lie. And so a lot of times people use this verse in those types of ways because they're trying to, tell the Christian that, hey, you got to be careful who you get in deals with and who you associate with. It's also used a lot of times, though, for relationships and marriage and those types of things. And it's really good advice for us as Christians to think about this. To think about, is it wise for me to be unequally yoked with unbelievers? Because here's what happens. A lot of people, and I'm going to get into this some more here in a second, a lot of times what happens, again, I'm not saying you can't have friends that are not Christians, but you've just got to be careful. Because what a lot of people do is they'll say, well, Jesus hung out with lost people. Yes, he did. But he did not let them bring him down, okay? Rather, he brought them up most of the time, right? Sometimes people didn't listen to him. But that's the difference there, because it's a lot easier to get brought down than it is to be brought up. And a lot of times that's what happens when we allow unbelievers to, influence us in such a way. And again, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect. I'm not saying you'll never slip up or anything like that. But that's something we've got to be conscious of. So how do we go about having a godly relationship or looking for a godly relationship? Well, I think there's a few things that we can just kind of look at. And look, I've as I said, there's not a lot on dating in the Bible, but just from me being in youth ministry for 14 years now and having seen a lot of people that have, walked through the doors of the churches I've been at and walked through our youth groups and, seen teenagers date in our youth groups and even seen some teenagers get married, from our youth groups, not while they're teenagers, obviously, but go on to get married to people from our youth group. I'm actually doing a wedding for one of our former students here in a couple months, and then I'm doing another wedding in April between two youth that dated while they were in youth group, and now they're going to get married. So really exciting stuff, and I love to see that. And so I just want to give you some advice just from things I've seen. I get it. I'm older. I'm a married guy. What do I know about dating in the world today? I don't necessarily, but I just want to give you some advice that I think is good for anybody, like in the dating world. I think it's good things to maybe set up if you're already in a relationship, and some good things to pray through. And I want to say this from the beginning. I'm probably going to say this many more times. The things I'm going to name, I'm not saying these are the only things and this is the end-all, be-all. I'm not going to discuss every single thing that you could possibly think of in dating, but I definitely want to cover some of the big ones in my opinion. So let's look at some of these together. Okay, so first thing here is that I think that both of you need to be Christians. And that goes back to the verse we just read, the unequally yoked. But just take it from me, okay? And just, again, I've seen many, many times this play out between, all types of people, out in the country, in the big city, different ages, high school, middle school, college, even adults. But you need to date somebody that's a Christian. It's going to save you a lot of just, stress. Especially I hope it's important. I hope being a Christian is something that's important to you, and I hope that that's something that is a big deal and it's like the most important thing in your life. And when you're dating somebody that it's not a priority, it's not the biggest deal, they don't really care, that is going to bring you way more stress than you think it is. And I understand you may think that they are so nice or they are so cute or so pretty or the best thing ever, or they just treat you so well or they're so funny or whatever it may be. I understand that, but I just want to encourage you that them being a Christian needs to be a non-negotiable. It needs to be the most important thing. No matter how athletic they may be or whatever, if they're not a Christian, I want to encourage you to, maybe think, well, then I'm just going to have to keep moving. I'm going to move on, right? Because here's the thing. If you don't deal with, if you date somebody that is not a Christian, and then let's just say that this all goes well and it ends up, you end up making it to marriage one day, those are some conversations, and they're still not a Christian, those are some conversations you've got to have. You really want to be in church, but they don't really care. You start raising kids, you really want your kids to love the Lord and go to church, they don't care. And that's just, again, I've seen that play out many times, and it usually never ends well. So I just want to encourage you to date somebody that's a Christian. Now, you may be saying, okay, well, what if I date somebody and because I'm such a good Christian witness, they get saved? Okay, that's a good, if they get saved, that's always awesome. Okay, but again, I just want to encourage you, that does not always happen. And as a matter of fact, it usually goes the other way when somebody thinks that way. We call that missionary dating. It's when you are dating them to try to get them saved because you just really want them to become a Christian, okay? I've got a few problems with that just personally. I just, number one, I think if you're dating them and hoping that they get saved, I think you're kind of putting their salvation on the back burner, and you're just like, I'm going to date them and we're going to hope they get saved. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And then when they get saved, you kind of chalk it up to you, and that can kind of be prideful. And then, it's like, oh, they got saved, so now, we can date, everything's cool. And I don't know, that seems kind of sketchy to me, okay? Also, again, like, you've got to think about that, if you're dating somebody that's not a Christian. Now listen, okay, I have seen two people date, and one of them was a Christian and one of them was not, and the person did get saved, okay? So that does happen, and if you're watching this, you're probably like, well, it happened, I know somebody, I got a story. I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm just saying it is very rare, okay? What's not rare is the other scenario, to where the Christian gets pulled down and where they get influenced, and sometimes they leave the church altogether. I've seen where a Christian dates a non-Christian, and the non-Christian convinces them that God doesn't even exist anymore, and they completely walk away from it all. That doesn't always happen. It's kind of the worst case scenario. But it does happen. Just the non-Christian pulling the Christian down is far more popular than the other. And, again, I'm going to move on from this point, but I do want to, as a youth pastor, and most likely you going to Crosshaven, you're a youth pastor, I just want to encourage you that I hope that you finding somebody that the most important thing is that they love the Lord. And I mean they really love the Lord, not just they say it, not just they're like, oh, well, this person likes me, I better say I'm a Christian or they won't like me. Or, well, they got a Bible verse in their bio on Instagram, or they go to church, or they say they're a Christian, I'm talking about somebody that really loves the Lord and really wants to grow, and whether they're dating you or not, they love the Lord, right? Because the other side of this is if, you start dating that person and they start loving the Lord just because they know it's important to you, that might be sweet and that might be romantic and heroic to you, but if they love the Lord because they're trying to impress you, then they love the Lord for the wrong reason, right? And hopefully we don't want that. We want a genuine salvation. We want genuine conversion. So there's a lot of things to think about with this, but I think it's just very easy if you date somebody that is a Christian, that is a growing Christian. They don't just say it, but you can see it in their attitude and the way they walk, and how active they are in their church, and those types of things. So that's the first one to me. That's the big one. But let's look at a few more here. Number 2 is, I would say that obviously if you're dating a Christian, if you're both Christians, then a good thing for a healthy relationship would be that you both are involved in a church. You go to church, they go to church. Maybe y'all go to the same church. But I would say regularly too, once a month or once every 2 months, that's probably not good. Because when you both are going to a church or going to church together, you're hearing the word. Hopefully you're getting encouraged. At your age right now, you most likely watching this are teenagers, you being in a youth group and being around people your age that can encourage you and help lift you up, that's just a great thing. That's a good thing. And if you're both kind of neglecting church or you both don't want to go, that's, to me, that's not good. If you're a Christian, you want to be around God's people. You want to be with them. I did a video a while back. You can go check it out on, do I have to go to church? And yes, I would say so. And you can go watch that video. I'm not going to re-say everything I said in that video, but I just think for you in a relationship, that's something you both need to talk about. And I get maybe you go to different churches, and so it's a little different. I'm not saying you got to have perfect attendance. You'll miss some Sundays. You'll be sick. You'll miss some Wednesdays. You'll be out of town. Things will happen. But you need to, for the most part, be involved in a church. I think that's a really good thing for a relationship to grow in the Lord. I would also say that you need to encourage one another. You need to help each other grow. Try to just talk about the Lord. Obviously you can't do that all the time or 24/7, but just help each other, pray for each other, ask each other how you can be praying. Those types of things, and just encourage one another. One of you's going through a storm or a hard time. Pray for them. Pray for them right there. Pray for them even when they don't know that you're praying for them. Try to offer words of encouragement. Try to do whatever you can, but I would say you need to encourage each other to grow, to read the Word, to go to church, to pray, to worship, all these things. You need to be encouraging one another. And finally, you clicked on this video, you probably knew this one was coming, but you need to be in a pure relationship, okay? That means you need to set some boundaries, like, hey, we're not going to find ourselves in a situation where things can get out of hand, where we can go too far physically. I would even say that you need to make sure beforehand, right? Like I would say you talk about that. You say, hey, let's not do this. Let's not be alone here. And listen, just, being honest here and being real. Different people struggle with different things in this, okay? And so if you guys care about each other, you need to set that standard. You need to say, hey, listen, I like you, but we can't, like that's gonna tempt me, and that's gonna set me up for failure. And again, you need to be practicing this individually, right? Because if you say, hey, we're pure in our relationship, but behind the scenes, I'm looking at things on my phone I shouldn't, or I'm just constantly thinking things I shouldn't, that's not good. And I'm not saying that, that it's not going to happen, like you're going to be perfect again, but you need to make sure that you have a control on that. And my biggest advice to you on that would be to have an accountability partner when it comes to that, right? Like tell somebody that you're struggling with that. If you're a guy, tell a guy. If you're a girl, tell a girl. Okay, like if you're involved in a church, youth pastor's wife, your Bible study teacher, whoever it may be, right? But find somebody to talk to about that. And I get it, man. Like I can't imagine being a teenager today in this iPhone world and in this iPhone society. Like the purity struggle is real, and I know it's something that you guys are dealing with in a way that I was not dealing with in the early 2000s. And so I think it's really important that you set those boundaries. And listen, I can't think of something, that somebody would not love more, right? Like if you're a guy and you go to your girlfriend and say, hey, I think we need to set some boundaries. If you're the girl, you go to the guy and you say, hey, listen, I care about you, I like you, but we need to set some things up to make sure we don't mess up. Like that's great. And I can't think of a godly person on this earth that would not love that and would not find that more attractive, right? And I want to say one more thing about this. Just be very careful. You may really like each other, and that's a good thing. But you need to not trust yourself in this area. Maybe you say, oh, we've got boundaries. We would never mess up. We would never, like, hey, we ain't got to worry about anything. That right there is a recipe for disaster. And, I'm not saying this is exactly how it works, but when you say things like that out loud, I mean, to me, it's almost like Satan is like, oh, really? Well, let's see about that. And he'll turn up the temptation kind of. And just guard yourself. Be very guarded. Be very, I'm not saying you can't ever hug. I'm not saying you can't ever hold hands. I'm not saying like go overboard with it, but just be very careful and, don't trust yourself in certain situations. You know where you're weak, okay? And so recognize that and make sure to not let that get out of hand. Because, if you're in public and you can't keep your hands off each other, then that's painting a picture, right? Like, if you're in public or you're at church and you two have to always be touching or something like that, like, who knows what's going on behind closed doors when nobody's around, right? Like if it's just y'all in the car or something like that, right? So we want to make sure that we're pure for God's sake, but also the message it sends to other people, right? We got to make sure other people don't have a reason to, or have something to where they can, it's sending the wrong message is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I got lost in my words right there. Where it's setting a bad example, it's setting a bad witness. But just be very careful and just, watch out for that. And I know this video is long, but I want to say one more thing before we close this out. You might be struggling right now. I know this video, I kind of pivoted. Like I told you, it's mainly for people that are already dating, but maybe you're really wanting to date somebody. Maybe you're really lonely. Maybe you're struggling. Maybe all your friends have boyfriends or girlfriends, and you just think, I wish I had somebody. I'm lonely. I'm upset. But I just want to challenge you. And again, I've seen many people like this through the years. Okay. There was a time where I dealt with this, like when I was a teenager and things, right? Like I was a teenager once, ages ago, right? When the dinosaurs were alive. I'm just going to go ahead and get that joke out the way. But, I understand that that's a struggle and that's a temptation for people. But here's the thing we've got to remember, okay? And I know what I'm about to say. You're probably going to be like, well, duh. But really believe this. Being in a relationship or finding a boyfriend or girlfriend, that is not the most important thing in this life. It's not, okay? Like, the happy ending to this life is not all wrapped up in you finding true love, okay? The happy ending of this life is us being found in Jesus Christ and being able to spend eternity with Him forever. Because what can happen is we can base our life, and a lot of people do this, right? Our culture does this. Base it around that, your life is not complete until you find somebody. And that is not true, okay? That is a lie. Because here's the thing. I love what I heard a pastor say one time. He said, if you're an insecure, lonely person when you're single, guess what? When you get married, you're going to be a lonely, insecure, married person. That doesn't change, okay? And take it from a married person, right? There's things that you've got to deal with as a single person before you get married. And so right now, if you're single in this season, work on your relationship with the Lord and trust that, hey, it's okay to pray for that. It's okay to pray to find somebody and that He's going to bring it in His timing, okay? Like you pray for it tonight. It's probably not going to happen tomorrow or next week or maybe even next year, okay? It may be a while. And let me also challenge you with this. A lot of you are in middle school and high school right now. You have got plenty of time. A lot of people don't meet who they're going to marry until they're in their 20s or their 30s. I get there's the high school sweetheart thing that happens. That does happen. Not lost on me. I know people it's happened to. There's people I went to high school with that got married. But that's more rare than what normally happens, and that's people meeting somebody later on down the road. So it could be coming. So don't stress, don't worry, don't fret. It's okay. But also, I want to challenge you to just take that maybe stress, give it to the Lord, and tell Him about it. He wants to know about our anxieties and our worries and all of that. But also use this time to focus on your walk with the Lord, because you've got this time right now to do that, and you may not have it later. And so use it wisely, grow in the Lord, learn to love Him, And then if he allows you to, date and marry one day, you'll be a better, stronger Christian for that person and for your marriage. So I just want to say that before we close this video out. Well, as always, it has been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed being with you tonight or today, depending on when I'm filming this. Can you tell? Do you know? Don't look behind me. That may give you a hint. Anyway, it's been great to talk with you about this subject. If we can help you or pray for you in any way, just let us know. Again, reach out. Send me an email. If you're a girl and you'd like a woman to talk to, I would love to get you connected with my wife or just somebody from our church and just talk about this with you and maybe help you out with this. But thank you so much for being with us. Do not forget to like, subscribe if you haven't done that, and to share this video if you would like to and if you think it's helpful for other people to see it. And also, news here, I believe that the YouTube notification bell, I think it's fixed, and so I think you can select it now and you will get notified whenever we release things. I think so. If it's not working, if you try it and it doesn't work, I'm sorry, I led you astray. I apologize. I did not mean to be dishonest with you, but try that out and see if it works. Hopefully it works. I think it does. I did something when I first started this channel. I still don't know what I did, but somehow I disabled it and I could not disable it. And so the other day, though, I'm pretty sure I saw that it's working. So anyway, don't forget to ring the bell, is why I said all that. And we will see you on the next one. Keep sending questions in. And also, I'm going to be releasing some videos that were not questions, but just kind of some standalone videos on some things I want to address. I've seen on social media and some other things to maybe help us along how we think about some certain things. So anyway, thank you for being with us. We will see you on the next one. God bless.